I am Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang. I am joined by a special guest today. Please introduce yourself from the EPA.
Hi, I'm Cindy Newberg. I'm the director of the Stratosphere Protection Division at EPA.
I am so happy to have a sun safety expert with us today. The strongest sun of the year is upon us here in the summer. So let's get to it, Cindy. Why are we wanting to discuss Don't Friday, and even why is it named that?
Great questions. Don't Friday, and in this case, Fry is F-R-Y, is because we're trying to remind people about the importance of sun safety. This is the Friday before Memorial Day. That's the day we traditionally have our Don't Friday for the past 13 years. The National Council for Skin Cancer Prevention designated this day because it is the unofficial kickoff of summer, to remind us all about the importance of sun safety and to remind us all that it's important to prevent ourselves from risks of skin cancer and cataracts, both of which are increased by cumulative exposure to UV radiation.
So let me put up our UV scale, Cindy. It's very important that we kind of quantify. We want to know the levels of ultraviolet radiation that's coming down from the sun this time of year. Do you want to briefly discuss when the UV is most dangerous and if there's any safe UV level?
Sure, that's a great question. The scale, which is, it's 1 to 11 plus, gives you an idea of the intensity of the sun, of the ultraviolet radiation and sun safety. The UV index, which is, you can find the UV index on EPA's website if you search UV index in EPA, and then you can download it for free from either Google Play or from the Apple App Store. What it does is you can go by your zip code, you can put in your zip code and you can see what the UV index projections are. And what this is, it's a forecast. It's put up usually about the day before. It's a forecast of the intensity of exposure, and it gives you different levels. And as the colors increase from green to purple, the intensity is increasing. And you asked the question of is there any safe level? I mean, from our perspective, we think you need to protect yourself always. But, if the levels are low, what you need to do, what you need to be worried about, that's a lot less than when the levels are much higher. And as you said, we're entering the time of year where the intensity of the UV index is going to be high.
I'd like to remind people when they talk about anything weather related, with the sun being the highest in the daytime sky at 1 p.m., it doesn't exactly match noon on our watches. It's usually around 1 p.m. Eastern. So would you agree with me, a recommendation of sunscreen 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Absolutely. It's when your shadow, if your shadow is shorter than you are, then you be seeking shade and looking to cover up. Hats, sunglasses, all of those different things we do to protect ourselves.
I've got my sunscreen, even though I don't need it totally with some of the rain today. I'm going to have it on hand for Monday when the weather improves. I promise, Cindy. So are melanoma cases rising, and why in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Skin cancer, first to start with, skin cancer is by far the most common cancer of all cancers. Secondly, melanoma, though, counts for a very small amount. It's about 1% of all cancers, but it is a high contributor to cancer deaths. It's on the rise. There's not one single factor that someone can turn to and say, like, this is why. But there are a number of factors we need to keep in mind. First and foremost, we're living longer. We're also doing a better job of diagnosing cancer, really also important. Folks are also more aware of what to look for when they think they may have skin cancer and seeking a professional to make sure that they are doing what they need to do to address that. So we see all of that happening. And then, of course, generations are different. If we look at 100 years ago, people covered up a lot more than they do today. And so that's another contributing factor as well.
I wish as a child I realized that a little bit sooner, but I think kids nowadays would not burn at camp like I used to, at Boy Scouts or 4-H, you name it. And I think you even said your children are doing better.
I'm going to say that exactly. When I think about the behaviors I did as a kid and I look at my kids, I got to say, they think about sunscreen. They take it when they're going off to sports practice. They think about it when they're going outside. They're far more better about it than I ever was. but it's still important to make sure people are aware, they know they're doing all the right things for sun safety.
So which groups are most at risk for developing skin cancer, and do those with darker skin need to be as concerned about UV levels in skin cancer?
Yeah, one of the things we try and remind folks is that we're all susceptible. Folks of any skin type and any skin color, we are all susceptible to skin cancer and cataracts in particular, because that's affecting our eyes. But even, there's your glasses. But even in terms of skin color, some folks don't burn as easily, some folks freckle, some folks don't realize, they just tan naturally, or some folks don't even necessarily realize that. But the cumulative effects of UV on the skin, it affects both aging and it affects the incidence of skin cancer. And so both are extremely important. And we want to remind people to take care of themselves and protect their skin.
So let's pivot easily there to what are recommendations, what are things the EPA recommends that we can do to help our skin to stay sun safe?
Yeah, there are a number of things that we recommend. I mean, first, we recommend folks cover up, that they think about it, that they consider wearing long sleeve shirts. We understand, thanks, there's that poster that we love. You slip on the shirt. The next is to put on sunscreen and to reapply sunscreen, and to be cognizant that if you're outside, you're exercising, you need to reapply. You're outside for long periods of time, you need to reapply. And then slap on a hat. I know you have yours on. I have mine here.
I'm in the
mine will also protect me against the rain that's coming my way pretty soon. And then wrap on sunglasses, because we need to protect our eyes. And I think that's really something that sometimes folks forget about, but is also obviously significant. And we want to make sure people are doing all of these things.
Indeed. I have to remind myself to put on my sunglasses too. The UV rays can add to the cataract risk later in life. Yep. Let's see. So these are some simple things the EPA is doing to remind people to prevent UV overexposure as they enjoy the outdoors. And it's another reason we're doing this Memorial Day. It's always the Friday before Memorial Day is Don't Fry Day, because I swear none of us are really in the mode for summer just yet. The water is cooler. Temperatures even this weekend are a little bit cooler. It's not July yet. It's not top of mind to think, oh, it's heat. Oh, it's sunscreen. But tell me, Cindy, is there any correlation between how it feels outside with air temperatures and UV rays and UV exposure?
There isn't a direct correlation, and that's a really good point. And folks forget sometimes, except for those who ski regularly, when you go out in the winter and you're on the slopes, you very often burn, and a lot of folks are very cognizant of making sure they're putting sunscreen on when they ski. But we like to remind folks that this is not just a seasonal thing. It's something we have to think about all the time. Sand, water, snow, these are all reflective, and it's important to remember that as well.
So I am Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang, and I'm joined by Cindy Newberg at the EPA. Let us know if you have any questions on staying sun safe this summer. It is Don't Fry Day. And so we are talking about how to stay this summer safe from ultraviolet rays that the sun is very strongly producing and throwing our way during the brightest, strongest sun of the year now. So let's see, Cindy, remind us why we're talking about Don't Fry Day. Why is it now? Why is it even named that?
Yeah, it's really important for folks to remember that being outside, we want folks to be outside, we want folks to enjoy, but between 10 and 4 in particular, it's very important for folks to take simple precautions to protect themselves from the cumulative effects of UV radiation. And in particular, it's both the effects that one sees that are consistent with aging, as well as just the cumulative effects of multiple sunburns. And we need to be cognizant of that. The idea is to prevent skin cancer and cataracts and do what we can. And there are simple steps you can do to protect yourself, to protect your family, and not impact your ability to enjoy the outdoors. We can all still enjoy it and still be taking those precautions.
So how do we know how much ultraviolet radiation is coming our way? I love for quantifying that, for seeing in real time what we're feeling or experiencing. Actually, we won't feel ultraviolet rays. That's the problem. That's how they're sneaky. So let's talk about the UV scale from the EPA. Can you briefly tell us how to use it?
Sure. I mean, the UV index, which you can download from EPA's website, It's a free app that we make available. You can get it in Google Play and in the Apple App Store. This is really something that EPA works in concert with the National Weather Service and CDC. The reason why we work together with both is a predictive scale. We look at what the predictions are for the next day based on what we know about the weather forecast, all of which plays an important role. And certainly y'all are very helpful in giving us the local weather every day, every hour. And then CDC has been a partner with us on making sure our messaging, we want to have messaging that is really helpful in making sure people know what's important about protecting themselves, protecting their skin, protecting their eyes.
Indeed. And CWG's Jason Samanal wants to ask if you can talk about the health of the ozone layer and what the EPA is up to in terms of protection of the stratosphere and how it links to UV safety.
Great. I love talking about that. That's an excellent point to raise. We're really at a great time. The United States and all countries in the world are parties to the Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol has been phasing down the production of some of the strongest ozone depleting substances, CFCs and HCFCs, folks have heard about for a long time. These are chemicals that have long atmospheric lifetimes and were used in a variety of products. By phasing these out and transitioning to safer alternatives, we're starting to see the healing of the ozone layer. And domestically, we've worked very hard to both phase out these chemicals and to smoothly transition to alternatives. And from our point of view, we're fairly sure most people probably don't even know that, in their lifetime, they probably had 2 to 3 different chemicals in their air conditioning systems, in their cars, in aerosol containers. They didn't notice that we transitioned to safer alternatives. And it's a big part of our program. We really have done quite a bit, and we're beginning, and I think you can see data from NOAA that begins to show that the ozone layer is beginning to heal. And we hope that by the mid-century, we see the ozone levels back to the levels they were at in the pre-1980 levels. And the reason why that's important is because the ozone layer is filtering out UV radiation, and we need to filter that out so that we ensure that it's not reaching the ground level and not reaching us and not creating the situation where we need to be particularly careful of how we protect our skin and our eyes.
I love that. Yes, indeed. The ozone is very important to keeping us safe from UVA and UVB rays. UVA has to do with aging our skin. So, hey, if vanity helps you maybe be motivated to put on sunscreen to avoid UVA rays, that's great. And UVB, that's the sunburn, right? That we get. And I think UVB also is what is correlated with skin cancer, or is that UVA?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on UV radiation, but I believe you're correct, UVB. And I think the way we like to think about it is, a lot of what we do is based on UVB is probably the higher part of the equation, but at the same time, what we look for in a sunscreen, for example, you want a broad spectrum sunscreen that's protecting you both against UVB and UVA.
So that's great. Since we're talking about sunscreen, I want to go back to what the EPA is recommending, some awesome recommendations to how to stay sun safe this time of year. We've got this great graphic, and I would love for you to tell us what to do this summer.
Sure. The first thing we say is slip on a shirt, preferably a long sleeve shirt or whatever you can do to protect yourself. Slop on sunscreen, and again, broad spectrum, UVA, UVB. We want an SPF value of 15 or higher. Slap on a hat, preferably a hat that's going to protect yourself. So a wide brim hat is best, and wrap on sunglasses. And I might add one other point on the sunscreen. If you're putting on both sunscreen and bug spray, for example, bug repellent, we're going to suggest you put the repellent on first and let that dry into your skin. Wait some time before you put on the sunscreen.
That is a great tip. I never knew. Thank you. Repellent first, let it dry, sunscreen next. Excellent. Oh, we've got Jeffrey Levy tuning in and saying hello to Cindy. It looks like he worked with you on some of this a while ago. That's excellent.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
All right, so one last time before I let you go in the next few minutes, Cindy. I'm Kendall Walker for Capital Weather Gang. Cindy Newberg, you are my awesome EPA expert on staying sun safe this summer. Thank you so much for your time. Let's recap really quick on what we're talking about today with the name Don't Fry Day. Why is it now, and why is it called that?
Sure. Don't Friday is always the Friday before Memorial Day. The reason why we do this is it's the unofficial kickoff of summer and our cicada season in this year. And we look at it as an opportunity to remind folks that we don't want you to fry. And in this case, we're using FRY. To remind folks that we don't want you to be out in the sun or without taking the right precautions for sun safety. And again, it's about protecting yourself from skin cancer and cataracts, taking the few several steps that you have up the graphic to remind us all of the importance of protecting our skin and protecting our eyes.
Excellent. And show us your great hat. Your hat is better than mine. And I think you even have excellent sunglasses. Because yours is wide brimmed, and that's important because it protects the neck as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple places, and I have my sunglasses with me as well. The couple things we always like to remind people when you're putting on sunscreen, sometimes you forget about the top of your ears, the part in your hair, the top of your feet. Those are areas that burn, and sometimes we just, we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about our arms or our neck or our face, and we forget about those other areas. So it's really important that you think about that. The reason why we prefer the brim hat is you get protection for your ears and for your neck. Your hat's helpful, but I kind of like this one.
Oh yes, I mean, I'll never forget at 4-H camp burning the tops of my ears. It was very hard to sleep when they're crispy. Horrible. Don't recommend it. So let's show one last graphic, the UV index. If you can tell us what it means, when maybe UV is the strongest during the day, any recommendations with regard to the UV index?
Sure. The UV index, so what you're seeing here, it's a 1 to 11 plus. We don't have really a high end. And it's a predictive forecast tool that lets you look at it. You can download it, put on your smartphone for free from EPA's website, from Google Play, or from the Apple App Store. And it's available both in English and Spanish, which is super helpful. You can look at the forecast and help predict or help prepare for your day. And what we'll tell folks is, you always need to think about the sun. You always need to be cautious about that. But as it rises, as the levels rise, and then obviously we want you to be more careful and more protective of yourself, of your skin, and of your eyes. And so we remind folks of that. Particularly once you get to sort of the orange levels, once you get to 6, 7, and higher, we want you to be much more careful. The hours for which we remind folks is between 10 and 4 are the areas for which you're going to have the most intensity. And also to remind folks, a simple thing to do is look at your shadow. You can tell if you are taller than your shadow shorter than you are, then you need to be taking the right steps to protect yourself.
Thank you so very much, Cindy. So final reminders, everyone, use that sunscreen. Do a hat that's even better than mine. Use Cindy's hat, which is wide brimmed, as an example. Sunglasses are very important. 10 to 4 a.m. Definitely a good idea to use that sunscreen. For more on the latest on sun safety, go to cwg.news/don'tfryday, and that link will take you directly to the EPA's sun safety website. Cindy, any other recommendations? And maybe Alana's question here we could touch on really quick. Even now, while it's cloudy, rainy, the UV index is 4, and that's important because this time of year, the sun is that strong. Clouds don't guarantee low UV, right?
Absolutely. And we remind folks, we always remind folks that the skin damage and cataracts and your eyes, protecting your eyes, this is all cumulative. So you can take a few simple steps, put on a hat, put on sunglasses, put on sunscreen, be thoughtful about whether or not you're in the sun or in the shade. And we certainly remind folks that, it's important just to take these few steps to protect yourself and to think about your health and your safety. Indeed.
And here are those last tips. We'll make sure to share these on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang signing off. And thank you so much to our EPA expert, Cindy Newberg.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday weekend, everyone, and stay sun safe. We wish you adieu. Bye for now.